Hello everyone, this is Greyshot17, and today I'm covering my thoughts on the 4v4 mapmaker competition. Yes, I'm running it, but essentially on the 11 maps that got submitted. You might see a cat right around here. I can hear him jingling with his collar, but that's because he's very excited about all the maps that got submitted. It's myself and a bunch of other judges have been looking over it, including Curry, Elpern, 151, Johnny, Alvadi, Rifle, Storm Panther, and Tightrope. And the judges, the main aspect of this is not necessarily like to harshly criticize any of these maps or to push map makers down, but really to elevate people and to get out to multiple different aspects of the CoH community these amazing 4v4 maps, and hopefully with that provide some new maps, some new experiences for the players who one of the biggest criticisms of CoH3 has been the lack of maps. Hopefully this helps elevate those players, helps incentivize them to make the best map they can, and helps out the community. So with all that out of the way, let me get into the 11 maps. Now at this point there's only 10. We eliminated one to get to the final 10 just because we didn't want to have, my fear was having 20 maps and you have like 10 of them that are so-so. That are just kind of lingering. I just want to make it 10 very different, interesting maps that are in front of people's view. We had 11 submitted, so one of them had to go, and that would be Sherman Fields. That one was done by, hopefully I get this right, Artelis. Again, was unfinished. Kind of reminded me of like a Bad Company 2 sort of map with the wide open fields, but it was unfinished. There are multiple areas that didn't have the polish. So all the judges pretty much agree, yes, we should get rid of that map. So thank you again for submitting that, but we will move on to the 10 maps, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on each and every one. Again, each of them are very different, but I do feel like that at least half of them are probably ones I can easily see in 4v4 auto match, and I don't think the community would be too angry about. But let's get into it, shall we? The first one that I can talk about is, I think everyone's like immediate like go-to, which is Inferno. Inferno is a map in which part of the map is on fire. It reminds me again of another Battlefield map, but you can see smoke billowing out. There's multiple areas like little corridors in which, not corridors, but like areas in which that you can't cross or interact with, but they kind of help make sort of lanes on the left, middle, and right. Again, if you go pretty much straight down the middle, you have your stars, and again, it's a very well designed map. My only thing is, compared to some other maps, is it's not the most visually pleasing map. It's good, I'm not denying that, but I also think that for play testing wise, it probably is the most balanced as of now, and I couldn't find as many like bugs or issues or anything like that from my testing. However, on the flip side, there are some more gorgeous looking maps, and I think that it has a really good style to it. I do like how you can you can tell like different areas, like, hey, go over there to the British encampment, or hey, go over there to the burning oil fields, right? There's areas on the map you can easily call out, and the way I say that is like in CoH2, the island in Step, right? You had like the northern plains, you had the island in the south, and you have fuel in mid, right? They're very, very iconic areas in a map that you can easily identify and call out to your team. They know what you're talking about. This has that, by at least having the areas in which you can't go to. It would be cool if you could, but areas you couldn't go to, like the British little base at the top of the hill, or the oil fields burning in the south. Like that stuff I feel like is good because it helps identify key areas to move to. So again, I would say this is a very easy contender, and I highly recommend you check it out. And that, by the way, I forgot to mention, is done by Tobe. Hopefully I'm getting that right. So Tobe, thank you for your submission. And again, we shall carry on to the next person, who in this case is going to be ESPYs. I'm going to butcher these names, I'm so sorry. ESPYs is essentially making Traverses, which is one of the most beautiful maps. Like when people say CoH3's art style, you know, it doesn't have a ton of detail, this person did so much goddamn work. It's probably it's in the top 2 best looking maps, and I'll say the other one here in a second. But the counterpoint to this map would be, well, it looks like Sittard Summer. It looks like Sittard Summer on like an Italian countryside with like the little town on both sides, right, scattered across. And yes, you're not wrong. The map is essentially a river going through with multiple bridges and crossings and other ways to get across, right? You could choke point this very easily if you had enough MGs and bunkers and everything like that. I still had a fun time playing it, and it's the best version of Sittard Summer I've played in because its performance is amazing. It looks great. It doesn't have that very distinct like locations, right? It's really just Southern Bridge, Middle Bridge, and Northern Bridge. And there's that. And at least in this version, the bridge is indestructible, kind of like Sittard Summer. The middle one isn't, so you can easily keep crossing back and forth without really risk of being like, well, stuck on one side. The VP's in the middle, that's where you go. Again, I could see also the Vermox fuel, a fuel advantage by the Kettenkrad playing a role in this and getting armor and overrunning the allies. However, I still think it's a gorgeous map. I still think it's predominantly very well balanced in terms of the resource positions, everything like that. It's really just the faction balance a little bit right now in terms of artillery and AT. However, I still think like the British have the bishops and they have the American airstrike stuff that if you play it well, you can deal with it. And I heard the patch made the Air Force maybe a little bit stronger, so I need to go into that after this. But anyway, yeah, there's multiple different aspects to it that I really enjoy and easily pushes this map into probably my top 3 picks. But the next map we have is the Steppe. Also a really good map that, hey, you're like, wait a second, Greyshot, didn't you mention the Steppe earlier in the video? Yes, this is a remake, and this is done by the Sphinx. So the Sphinx, awesome job, because you did a really good job recreating a Russian map in, I'm assuming, the North African desert. Like, it's gorgeous. And this is what I mean by, like, having a map in the desert that really stands out, because he really brings the color and the interesting dynamic to this map. You have the same general idea of Steppe, like the same lanes in Steppe in CoH3 is same here. However, the island is now like a desert kind of an area. Instead of the river kind of, or not the river, I guess the waterways going around, it's desert. It's really cool. I like it with ruins in the center. I really do enjoy it, and again, playing this with the advanced AI was fun. But yeah, the middle area, if you look at the middle area and are like, that's 100% the Steppe, or sorry, steps from CoH3, because it has the high cliffside, which in this version, the last version, if you fall, man, you're fine. This version, you fall, you're gonna break a leg. Like, it has some steep cliff stuff. I enjoyed it. I think it's a really good remake, but there is some clipping with the rocks, and it is a remake of a previous map, but I still think he did a really good job at putting it down. And gameplay-wise, I do like how, at the very least, it doesn't seem like in the other versions, like, oh, you take the south, you're just gonna have this immediate win. This one, at least to me, the resources maybe are a little bit more spread out, or at the very least, it didn't feel like kind of like CoH3, where, you know, if you don't grab the fuel, you're done. I thought the Sphinx did a great job with remaking this map. Okay, King of the Hill. And by the way, as I talk about these, the map makers, right, they are updating their maps. So I am going to keep playtesting them because my opinion could change, and I want to state that. But Shadow Freak, hopefully I got that right, made a map that to me doesn't work. It does have some really good looking areas, and then other areas are kind of repeated a bit, and that's where like other maps hide it better at repeating textures and stuff by making it just look really good. King of the Hill has some decent spots, but it's more prevalent to me that this is a community map made by someone that is making a mod map. To me, it doesn't necessarily work. The high elevation looks cool, but you move your camera and you're clipping through everything. And then there's points on top of other points. There's a whole street that is just like a line of buildings, and it doesn't feel like an actual cityscape. It feels like an artificial map, more so than a lot of the other maps. It's not saying it's bad, but to me, it just doesn't work. But that being said, he has been constantly updating it, so I do want to go back and see if maybe those updates change my opinion on it. So, next up, we got ourselves a map by Spring Air, and this is Oasis Depot, and this is the other gorgeous map. This is probably one of the best looking maps in CoH3. in general. I love this map. The river that's kind of going through, but it's not really as choke pointy as other maps. Like Traversy, yes, you could say a choke point, but this has wide open territory for massive armor engagements on both the north and the south. There are bridges, but the bridges are destructible, but it's going to be something to where it's more balanced, because the bridge is closer to the enemy's base, so you really have to push far to break the bridge to cut off the enemy, right? And they could easily come up through an area a little south to the bridge or a little bit north to the bridge, depending on which area you are on the map. The waterway in the center, I think, looks really cool. To me, my only thing would be you could still maybe choke point some stuff with bunkers, but he's already taken some feedback, and apparently he's opening up possibly 2 additional ways into the center island location. Like this, it's an island, and I love it. It's really cool, well made. And again, there's multiple different ways in north and south for armor to move. So it's not like Sittard Summer where it's like, well, I guess we're only fighting in mid. No, there's multiple ways to move armor, which I really enjoyed. Now, it is very symmetrical, so to me, it doesn't feel like in the north, like there's a very specific icon that differentiates itself with the south, right? Kind of like what I mentioned with Inferno, how you have the southern oil position and you have the northern British base, kind of like areas that like, oh, you can call out. This one, to me, didn't have that. Maybe I need to play more, because I know there's a base in the south, but maybe again, that will get more into my subconscious with that stuff. But to me, this, it just didn't have that aspect. But I still really enjoy it. I thought he was very clever with how he used the water and how he put vegetation in there to make it look more alive. I really liked the overall cityscapes. And how like buildings are positioned, everything like that. It did, like, everything felt well made. It felt like someone was like, okay, how do we design a 4v4 map to be as balanced as possible, but have a unique flair to it? And this is a really cool looking map that is very different from everything else. So I highly recommend Oasis Depot. It's probably easily my top 3 favorite maps to play on. All right, Valley Hill. Valley Hill feels like I think it's Call of Duty 3 or something, as we're in the beginning, but you're fighting in like you're trying to push up in this Italian village, and there's fog and smoke and all this stuff. That's what it feels like to me, is like, hey, guess what? World War I is coming into this World War II map. Just based on the fog and the style, it feels like very grimy sort of Italian battles, which makes sense. I mean, there's literally a position in the Italian map that spent 6 months in just absolute hell. But in all the positions are sort of, how do I put this? Again, they try to bounce out each side, but it doesn't have, to me, that unique flair to it. I'm not saying it's badly designed, but to me, it just didn't have. Maybe I need to play more on it, but it just didn't have that unique, like, that style that just brings me into a map. To me, it kind of makes me feel like General Mud, which, again, this is my own opinion. General Mud, I don't think is a terrible map. It just doesn't have the unique flair that pulls me into a map. But again, there's still plenty of time for Takhtari, sorry, I almost forgot his name, Takhtari, to update it and to, again, fix everything. And they have until next week. For those who don't know, next week from when I'm recording this is the final week we vote. And we are picking the finalists on June 20th. Right? So June 20th is the final date, which we're like, hey guys, this is the winners. So I just want to point that out because of the fact there's still time for people to update it. We encourage them to update it based on judges' feedback and also community feedback. And I feel like Elpern and a bunch of other content creators, Ovadi, have made videos covering this stuff. I've been so busy I haven't been able to, but I'm glad they have, because I want these maps to be as amazing as they can. And the next map I really enjoy. It's Aussies to Brook map. Now this is kind of like a happy accident between, it's like if someone it's like the Red Ball Express had a child with Across the Rhine, and they just had a child, and it's like, so you have the best 3v3 map in CoH3 having a child with the best 4v4 map, or one of the best 4v4 maps of CoH2. Sorry. And again, to me, I really enjoyed it. The one criticism I have is maybe the higher points are further back, right? So the fuel, at least from what I recall, was like 10 by the base. Maybe that should be toward the mid. But the elite, and that includes also the munitions. That's the one criticism I will say, is maybe switch that so that way the higher stuff is in mid to battle it out. You can maybe have one of them in the back, that way you at least have a substantial fuel, but I feel like you should battle over that stuff. But like the water line onto Brook looks amazing. I really like the fact you have the airfield up top. Again, every lane has its own distinct feel to it, and that's what I really enjoy in this. It feels like a very unique, interesting map, and I love the design of it. It feels like a big North African coastline that is just under constant hell and fire. It feels so cool, and I like how each of these maps is very distinct from another, because I was worried about a desert map would look very similar to other desert maps, but no. Inferno to Brook, Oasis Depot, all of them look so different and have a unique sense of style to them that I tip my hat to all these map makers, because they did such a good job at showcasing this stuff, and hopefully the footage I'm showcasing of these maps kind of really highlights that stuff. All right, but yeah, that's again easily one of my favorite maps. Next up, we got ourselves Crossing the Volturno River. Okay, I'm going to be very honest in this one. This one did not grab me as much as the other ones. Maybe it was just because the amount of buildings and it was just so big, but to me it just didn't grab me. VonSmedman, again, thank you for submitting this, and again, and I know you've been doing some updates, so I need to play those recent changes, see what you did. But to me, it felt like such a massive 4v4 map. Like, it's so massive, in fact, that I'm just like, okay, this feels like more of a, my brother mentioned this, it feels like more of a 6v6 map than a 4v4 map. And again, that's just my thoughts on it. But hey, if you want a very big 4v4 map, here you go. But I feel like it's too big for its own good, with a lot of it's very big and maybe not as much detail in the smaller things. That's where I think like Traverses, Oasis Depot, other maps really center on, is having those small details across the whole map. But again, we'll see. Maybe some updates will change my opinion on it. All right, Italian Beach Landing. Unless I'm mistaken, is this the one with like a blinding light? It had some really cool designs up in the bridge, but also there are other aspects where you like it would go into these like choke point areas. I'm just like, this feels like someone's like over ambition trying to get into these interesting battle ideas that maybe in practice isn't as amazing as it would like to be. I'm not saying it's terrible. Again, I really like how like you have this bridges fighting across this giant like hill, and it's really cool in terms of like how he made the city. But to me, it feels like, okay, maybe it's like cool on paper and really making the design, but just doesn't play as amazing as it could look. And there also there's some areas that I think just needs final touch-ups on. Like, it feels a little bit off compared to some of the other maps. But again, still plenty of time, and I know they're still updating it, so amazing. Last but not least, we got GP Pirates Hill 209. And this map, again, it feels, out of the desert maps, maybe a little bit more plain. And it's funny saying that because he has destroyed vehicles everywhere, and that aspect looks really cool. But the problem is, and this is also some of the things I point out, is the fact, like, again, it looks like there's a lot of time and effort to make this as balanced and putting all these points everywhere as possible. And to be fair, it plays very well from what I initially tested. However, it also feels like a lot of the same across the map, where at the very least that I wanted more of a visual punch. The flaming vehicles are cool, but again, I feel like, I don't know, it needs a little bit something more. And there's some areas I feel like it could use additional terrain or additional just detail. As in other desert maps, again, you have all these different colors of the desert. Here, it's a little more plain, and I really hope he can just add more visual punches to it, like more detail, maybe differentiating the craters and all the defensive works and stuff like that, so it looks a little different. I'm not saying that everyone has to be like the same, but like when you have so many different desert maps that have their own unique colors and scale and like just visual appearance, and I feel like this one is a little lacking. Though, again, you can definitely tell they put a lot of effort in making sure how can we balance this map, and I do appreciate that. So again, to all these map makers, I wish them the best of luck. They still have a whole week to get the things in order for their maps. And again, I highly recommend you try them out. Links will be down below. Check out all these maps. Luckily, they were all put together in an amazing workshop area. So essentially, there is a whole playlist that was put together, which is amazing. Again, I tip my hat off to the fact that GB Pirate managed to put all this together. Again, very cool. I have to be objective in terms of, you know, putting this out, but hey, I do appreciate you making it, because I was like so busy. I'm like, oh, I need to I need to put these maps together, and then it's already done. I'm like, thank you, man. Thank you. But yeah, no, I highly, highly, highly recommend you check out all these maps. Put your opinions of them down into the Steam Workshop version of the map, put it on Reddit, wherever, because I want the community to talk about them, because the feedback is good for the map makers. They can adjust their maps, and even if, let's say, the middle portion or of these maps, right, like the ones that I maybe didn't speak as highly about, but they still have some interesting stuff. If they don't win this competition, I still want the community to know these maps, because I still think there's potential and they can still be really fun games. And for the top maps, I want them to be pushed. If we're on Relic, be like, hey Relic, here's awesome maps the community made. Please, 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 come on. The community is trying to help out as much as possible. Can you do something with these maps? Can you maybe, you know, try to push them in like a community section for auto match, or like get them in front of more eyes? Because I feel like this really, really would help a lot of the major critiques of playing the same 2 4v4 maps over and over. It allows something new. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. This has been Greyshot17 covering the 4v4 maps, and I'll see all you guys next time. Hello everyone, this is Greyshot17, and before y'all go, let me give a special shout out to Patreon supporters: Joey G240, Milam, Big Cooch, Aphyria, Ace, Pyro Shark, Tony B95, Epic Pleb. Thank you all for your incredible support and helping me grow my channel and support my channel and everything I do. Thank you, and to the rest of you, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.